He's all dressed up today.
Why don't you wear a suit? You're at the highest level in this country's office, and you refuse to wear a suit. Just want to see if you do you own a suit?
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing.
Did you see that? Did you?
People, one and all, welcome to the Sunday live stream on My Left Eye. I'm your host Lefty. You're all very welcome here this evening. Thanks for joining me and choosing to see your week out on the stream. How are we doing tonight? RC pilots, it's a calamity indeed. Thanks for jumping in the chat. We've got Morbius there as well. Jacqueline, great to see you as always. Andy Carter as well. Happy Socialist Sunday to each and every one of you. Good puns there, good quality puns already. And Palestine flags, what a great start to the stream. World War T? Well, it could be. This is potentially appeasement in our time, people. Waving pieces of paper around. Lots to talk about with this international diplomatic crisis at the moment. Lots of meetings, agreements, but also impasses and arguments as we've seen through the week. I mean, my God. I put a video out about that absolute calamity that happened on Friday. Please do check that out if you've not seen it already. Going to be getting into that as well as everything else. I'll tell you everything that's coming up on the stream after we jump into Keith's Fondue Lounge very shortly, as we always like to do on Sundays. I have emailed asking if there are vegetarian and vegan options. There is no reply from Downing Street as of yet. Yeah, and then I'll go through what's coming up on the stream. My pal Foot is in the house as well. How are your feet finding you this week? Doc Davies as well. Great to see you. Thanks to those of you who've thrown up the Palestine flags. Please make sure you hit thumbs up on the stream as well. Let's get this quality out there. Quality streaming. Yeah, thanks for those of you for jumping in the chat if you can. I know some people just prefer to listen, or you don't have, you're not on the right device to get on the chat. But great to see everybody tonight. Hit those buttons. And if you're listening live or on a replay as well, please do jump in the comments. Even if you just want to say a couple of words, like quality streaming, or whatever you'd like to put. This is not a psychological experiment to test conformity. But thanks a lot for all of your support in helping get the channel out there. Jojo, great to see you as well. And you can give us a shout out on your social media if you prefer. We're currently on Blue Sky and Mastodon. Please do join us on there if you're on them. If not, we are still on Twitter. There's still a My Left Eye account on Twitter, but hoping to join the mass exodus and leave Elon behind us. Don't worry, I never go on any of the ads or anything. On Twitter, always Twitter, never X. Special thanks now to all of the members on the channel. Once again, I've added a couple of new names there. It's great to see some familiar faces as well, listening live and in the roster of awesome people, the Brew Crew, as it were. Although this is a Sunday stream, you're still welcome to throw as many tea-based puns as you like, anytime. I mean, I'm not a fascist or anything, so yeah. Thanks again to all of you. Getting ever closer to that 100 members goal that I set last week. Well, thanks to those of you who have renewed memberships recently, as well as gifted to others. Unfortunately, a few people haven't renewed in the last couple of days, and we've dropped back to 88. That confounded number that obviously we don't want to be on, with this being a socialist channel. For those of you who aren't regular viewers, politics and society from a left-wing point of view. 8T8. I mean, you can get a good tea put out of it, but it's not a great number. And we're off 88 thanks to Andy Carter. Solidarity for that. Thanks for all of your support on the channel. And I know he's got a few tea-based puns and other gags in the bag as well. Thanks again, Andy. Thank you for that, brother. So 89. So if you were keeping count there were 88. It's actually grouped into 8 sets of 10 and 1 set of 8 for those of you keeping score. I know Keith could potentially be keeping score. Why am I doing the Keith voice? It was a bit near the Keith voice. Sausages. And good point as well. Sideways 8 is the symbol for infinity. Yeah, it's good to see. You're happy to see your name there on the list of members, my pal Footfoot. I forgot to mention as well, if you'd like to join that wonderful list of people and show some solidarity with the channel, it's just 99 pence. There's perks for you to enjoy. You can get exclusive content, early viewings on other content. You get static emojis. Been playing around with a few ideas for new static emojis as well. Now that we're expanding the community. So take a look at the perks. If you hit the perk button, you should be able to see that just underneath the stream. A good point, Andy. Rachel Reeves, yeah, that'd probably make a head blow up. Just to explain. So it's 8 sets of 10, Rachel. Let's start from there. And she's got the abacus, of course. She's run out of fingers and toes trying to work it out. I mean, if it was a customer service call centre, for example, then she might be okay. Yes, sorry. The wonderful impersonation of her from Nareen Skinner just popped into my head from, I think it was on the last live stream, one of the last live streams during the week, on the Brews at 10. The pet peeves with Rachel Reeves thing, brilliant. Speaking of comedy, there is going to be some comedy coming up. Let's dive into Keith's Fondue Lounge and have a chat about what's on the menu this evening. I just have to kill the band for a sec. It is, of course, as every Sunday, cramped here in the studio. Having to broadcast with a 4-piece jazz band behind me. Okay, that's enough for now, fellas. Honest, wink. A 4-piece, you say, Lefty? All I hear is drums, double bass and piano. Well, I'll let you in on a little secret, viewers. There is a 4th member of the jazz band, Herbie Range. It's just that neither you or I can hear him because he plays the trumpet in such a fashion that the noise is supersonic. So that's just a bit of an insight into production here at My Left Eye. For anyone who's actually listening to how many members there might be in the band. Okay, Keith. Let's go and get crash the party once more. Keith's Fondue Lounge, people. Here we are. Let's get you good people up in the chats as well. There we go. Wonderful. Okay, so what's coming up? Since I was last with you, Keith had a visit to the White House, of course, following Emmanuel Macron's earlier visit. And then Zelensky, of course, was there on Friday. We'll be going through that. I did a video, as I said earlier, but just a bit more about that absolute pile-on. This sabotage, the setup, from the reporters, from JD Vance, from Donald Trump. Have you ever seen anything like it? Crazy, crazy. And then, of course, he was welcomed with open arms here in the UK by Starmer. Starmer's been shaking hands with a few people. The neo-libs and the far right seem to be getting on great guns at the moment, people, unfortunately. Trumpety. Good one, Andy. Very good one. Morbius. Warm welcome to you. How you doing? Uncanny Valley. The AI video you mentioned as well in the chat, might be having a look at that later as well. So what else is coming up? Yeah, I'm going to be going over these meetings. Again, so many meetings. A lot of the EU leaders in Lancaster House today with Zelensky. Also, forgot to mention, while Keith was over in the White House, he handed Trump a piece of paper. I held in my hand a piece of paper. No, it was an invitation from the King for a second controversial state visit extended to Donald J. Trump, which he was pretty happy about. One thing he won't be too happy about is that Zelensky's beaten him to the punch on that one today, meeting the King while he was on his visit. But overall, this isn't a great situation. I think there's so many meetings going on, but there's a massive elephant in the room, a massive impasse, as it were. A diplomatic wall that at the moment is simply impossible to breach. We'll go through all of that. We'll discuss who might be mostly to blame. whoever it may or may not be. Just clear my throat here. Donald, excuse me. Bit of a dry throat there. What else has been going on? What else has been going on, people? Yeah. Annalise Dodds has quit. The, well, now former International Development Minister. That's sort of been almost brushed aside with all this other stuff going on. There have been some protests as well, of course. The way that Vance and Trump treated Zelensky on Friday only seems to have ramped up support for Ukraine, apparently, so there have been some protests there myself. As I always say, in this situation, I've no more love for Putin or Zelensky for various reasons, which I won't go into at the moment. Also, there's been another increase in rail fares. I'll be talking a little bit about that. As well as the latest, of course, in the Middle East, as we came to the end of phase 1 of the ceasefire agreement between Hamas and Israel yesterday. But whatever's happening going forward remains to be seen. However, I'm sure you won't be too shocked to hear that yet again we've seen another appalling example of Israel breaking the ceasefire agreements just in the last few days. So lots to get into, and you can see behind Starmer there, you got Peter Mandelson. God, it just makes your skin crawl saying the name. Who's now, of course, the UK ambassador to the United States, and appears to have made a statement or a demand. Not sure if he put this through Keith before he mentioned it, but apparently he wants Ukraine to declare a ceasefire first. But has he gone over Keith's head on this matter? Although, let's be honest, Mandelson and Blair, who you can see in the portrait on the wall behind Keith, they've both got their fingers on the strings. Where Keith's concerned, he's but a mere puppet. The son of a toolmaker. Hedy, hope you're well. Thanks for joining us on the Sunday live stream. Happy Socialist Sunday to you. So plenty to go at, people. Quite right there about Morbius, about Mandelson there, Morbius. Slimy toad of a man. Can't say that Blair's any better. Had a bit of event earlier on social media, you might have seen, speaking of Blair and Mandelson. For some reason, when I was watching the developing stories today on the BBC, they seem to think that the best source to go to for analysis and projection of future events was Alistair Campbell, Tony Blair's former spin doctor, who, of course, helped to fabricate all of the lies that led up to the illegal invasion of Iraq about 20 years ago. Well, 22 years ago now, I believe. But it is the BBC, after all, as some of you have commented. Thanks a lot for your comments on that post and in the community page. Alistair bloody Campbell. Why would you want to hear what Alistair Campbell thinks? He threw Corbyn under a bus as well. He switched to the Lib Dems. There's his party loyalty for you. And it's just an absolute weasel as well. Weasels, toads, snakes. Martin Arnold, solidarity to you too. Happy Socialist Sunday. To all of you as well, brothers, sisters, they, thems, comrades alike. Shall we kick off with something light-hearted though before we go into dystopia and appeasement in our time, people? I've got quite a selection on this episode, people, but I think I'm going to start with this one. As we wave goodbye to Keith. I'll see you next time for some more fondue. Alright, so this one's from Michael Spicer. Everyone, this is a great one. It's another episode of The Room Next Door, which I've featured before if you're not familiar, of course, as always, with Michael Spicer. Check him out.
We can say that we're going to be getting along on every one of them. We've had a tremendous relationship. And frankly, the Prime Minister and I have met twice before. And
that's it, Prime Minister, nearly there. Not long to go now, then you can go back to your hotel room and scrub this whole experience off.
We get along very famously, as you would say.
Give that a chuckle.
And
that's it, humour the tyrant. Now give him the letter.
And it is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King.
Oh, you can tell he's impressed.
So can I present the letter from the King to
Thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Postman Pat. What else
It's Postman Twat, actually, Michael.
have you got? A parcel for next door?
Am I supposed to read it right now?
Oh my God, I forgot you can't read. Hopefully he'll just pretend to read it to himself.
You can hear the cogs whirring.
Well, this is going well.
Perhaps you'd like to say what that very important paragraph...
Yes, so...
Oh my God, that was so obvious. All right, just read it, Postman Pat. Get on with it.
It's an invitation for a second state visit.
Whoop-de-flip.
This is really special.
It certainly is. I mean, I can barely contain my, whatever.
Happily take that back to His Majesty.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that's nice. I mean, I have in my hand a piece of paper, kind of optics, but never mind. Take some questions.
AUKUS, sir. Will you be discussing AUKUS with the Australians and the Brits? Will you be discussing AUKUS with the Prime Minister, sir?
What does that mean?
Oh, God.
AUKUS, the Australia-US Defence Alliance.
Yeah, well, we'll be discussing that.
Oh, yeah, we'll be discussing that thing that I've never heard of before and you've just told me about. Yeah, sure.
You know, the British have been incredible soldiers, incredible military, and they can take care of themselves.
Yes, they certainly can now they've reduced the foreign aid budget. In fact, tell him that, Pat. Tell him you've cut foreign aid. He'll like that. He did that himself. It's one of the first things he did. Find some common ground, yeah? Tell him that despite pledging in your manifesto that you'd increase foreign aid, you've actually decided that it's better for the international community to make less money available for hospitals and vaccination programmes and humanitarian crises all around the world.
But if they need help, I'll always be with the British, okay? I'll always be with them.
Comforting to know, thanks.
You have done very well over the years, haven't you?
We have. I'm very proud of our country. And but we've also...
Oh my God, that was one of the worst handshakes I've ever seen. I wish they'd stop touching each other.
Backing each other up between our two countries. That is why this is the greatest alliance for prosperity and security I think the world has ever seen.
Absolutely. Or you're just a lapdog sitting next to a convicted felon controlled by Russia who is installing an authoritarian government to destroy democracy and start a new world war, and who's just agreed to an aid cut that will kill 600,000 people. One of the two. Still, I hope he enjoys his state visit to the UK, even though the only king that excites him is Burger King.
Very good, Michael Spicer. Like that one, the only king that excites him is Burger King. Brilliant, fabulous Michael Spicer there, The Room Next Door. Definitely recommended, definitely worth follow. Von Nakarizer, great to see you. Ahoy, ahoy. They could be giving Trump the same drugs as they gave Biden. He clearly couldn't read that invitation though, could he? Do you want to read this out? Just this bit at the bottom that I know what it says. Yes, but dear Donny, one thinks you're an utter wanker. Yours sincerely, Charlie. As you say though, Jacqueline, be quite better. Yeah, you can bugger off. Right, let's grind our way through this appeasement in our time. That was earlier in the week. Keith with Trump. I'll do a bit more of a in-depth analysis of Zelensky and Trump's meeting. First off, before I go into developments from today. That's if my blood pressure can handle it, people. I mean, seriously. I still can't decide if this is as bad or worse than the Gaza video. What a time to be alive. I've just got some of the main bits, not the whole. I think he went on for about 45 minutes. So this is, yeah, after the stuff about his clothes. When he, you know, he's all dressed up today when he arrived, and the reporter asking if he even owns a suit. And then it's this, which is just, I mean, you know, a lot of different conversations go behind closed doors, but
we can say that we're going to be getting along on every one.
Just get this queued up.
For 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think.
So the first point, what Vance was saying about what happened during the Biden administration. I guess whichever side you sit on this, it goes without saying everyone has to agree that if Ukraine hadn't have had the support of Biden's government, then Putin would have ridden roughshod over Ukraine long ago, as we come into the fourth year since Russia moved into Ukraine. And I know that there was a lot of political discourse before that happened. I know that there were There's obviously there are things to say about the election of Zelensky himself. There were peace accords in 2019. Also, people point out intimidation from the United States and NATO as well. But suffice to say that there's no way that Ukraine would have lasted as long as they have, even though they've lost a great amount of territory. There's no way that would have happened without what Biden did. For right or wrong, I'm not getting into the debate about that at the moment, but just wanted to, point that is what the state of affairs is.
It's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems.
That is actually true. I'm not defending Vance. I think he's an absolute piece of human waste, of course. But I've seen videos of these gangbusters, if that's what you want to call them. They force people into vans, conscripts. They take them to the front lines. Like I said earlier, I'm no more a fan of Zelensky than I am of Putin. But that doesn't excuse J.D. Vance's behaviour here as well, of course. It's a bizarre one. It's a bizarre one to have to comment on without taking anyone's sides. Obviously, I'm not on the side of Vance or Trump or Zelensky or Putin. I think they're all warmongers. But yeah.
You should be thanking the president for trying to bring it into this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine? Did you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
That is, again, I'm sure that the United States do propaganda tours and whatnot in other contexts, but it was just that everything he said, Vance had to jump down his throat, and that's what happened throughout the entire thing, very publicly as well. And yeah, there's no grace here at all. There's no dignity in any of this. It's awful. It's awful. But it's terrifying. It's terrifying because I don't think I'm overstating things or being hyperbolic when we say this could be appeasement in our time, or the early warm-ups to World War III, because even Trump himself goes on to say that could be on the table in a moment.
Do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
Yeah, sorry, I think I said gangbusters or something. I meant press gangs. Press gangs is what I was referring to with the conscripts.
A lot of questions.
Thanks,
Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know
bless.
that.
You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on
position
this
to
question.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly what
this.
you're
You're in no position.
I think he was just, and again, not a fan of him, not trying to defend Zelensky, but he is getting rounded on in this situation. You've got to agree. He's just trying to say that you can't trust Putin. Obviously, he knows that. Donald Trump certainly thinks that he can. He's switched sides, as is clearly evident here. He just wanted to mention that Putin would happily screw anyone over. But again, they jump down his throat.
To dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the
the
cards right now. With us, you start having
not playing
cards.
cards.
Right now, you don't.
I'm very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
This is purely mobster racketeering shit. Again, this is a very elaborate racketeering scheme that Trump and Vance have got going on here. Hey, you know, it's a nice country you've got there. It'd be awful if something happened to it, yeah? You know, this guy Putin's out there. Anything could happen unless you had the right protection. And, you know, we're the nice guys. We'd love to offer you the protection, and we just humbly ask in return for 50% of your rare earth mineral resources, which isn't too much to ask, really, because, you know, anything could happen. And we'd hate to leave you out in the open to stand up against Putin by yourself or with whatever military assistance European countries are going to throw that. But that's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. It's a racketeering ring, is as succinctly as you can put it. A good point, Andy. Why did they have this televised? I don't know. Maybe they're trying to give me a stroke or something.
You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Well, there you have it. And when I actually watched this live, and yeah, that was the, you know, that was the "you gotta be kidding me" moment, as it were. To hear the President of the United States of America mention World War III, I mean, so loudly, so directly.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
That's where we've got to. That's where we're at.
And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
I've not got it queued up. There's a video out there, saw a bit of it on social media earlier. 94 times when Zelensky has publicly thanked the United States of America. And I'm sure that he probably, you know, would have thanked them had he been given a chance to speak for more than a second and a half without Vance and Trump and that other sloppy ass Republican reporter asking him about his suit. This is real greaseball shit, people. But I'm sure that he would have thanked them again. And this, how dare you not kiss our boots crap. It's just, it's, you know, schoolyard bullying shit as well.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you can...
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute.
He means figuratively, Donald, not literally. He means figuratively. He wasn't saying you're shouting.
No, you've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country.
You saw a part there where he said, I know, and then he said, you're not winning, and he almost said, I know again. But obviously, he doesn't want to openly admit that.
Staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military
president.
equipment,
You
and you
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about
If you didn't have our military equipment, if you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this. I tell you.
Well, what Donald Trump's trying to do in terms of business is change the terms of the contract after it was signed, and obviously these agreements came between Zelensky and Biden, and whatever agreements they had were met, whether it was a donation, whether it was a loan, and there have been various ways that they've received support and various deals, but that was on Biden's watch. You can't retroactively go back and try and change this deal and turn around and say, you know what, I've decided you owe us $350 billion or whatever it is, which is what he's trying to do. The man's a deluded nutcase. And again, a reminder, yeah, I'm not a fan of Zelensky or anyone who's got fascist battalions, neo-Nazi battalions, like the Azov battalion in their army, of course. And there are other things to criticise Ukraine on as well when people were trying to flee the war. Black people, people of colour, ethnic minorities were refused entry into Poland, which is another far-right country, and Zelensky didn't seem to be too bothered about that himself. I could go on and on, but I don't want to get too distracted. Just want to quickly see what some of your people are saying in the chat before we crack on. Yes, Morbius, the hungry hippos of America. They want your stuff. They want your things and your stuff and things. Super Tiny, nice to see you again. Yeah, it was like watching the school bullies beat up the kid whose mum just died. Odin, good point. Ukraine were pitched a game they couldn't win. And Trump's certainly aware of that, which is why this racketeering thing's going on. But I've got my reservations, shall we say, about whether Keith's going to get his way and have America as the so-called backstop in this situation. I'll come on to that a bit more later on. Just looking at a few more comments in the chat. Good point about the billions, of course, Jacqueline. The US donated. They go to all those companies, Raytheon, BAE Systems and Lockheed Martin, yeah. The industrial military war complex ploughs away. And if you think that Trump wants peace, then just look at the United States economy. So much of it is based on war, the manufacturing and selling of weapons, the almost perpetual wars across the world are required just to keep it going. If you think that Trump wants peace, far from it. He's not going to want to put out the fires, as it were. And it's all just a facade, this peacemaker thing he's trying to push. Well, I'm not buying it, Donald.
Just say thank you.
I said a lot of times to American people.
Accept that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong.
Oh yeah, sorry as well. He's saying in the chat, forgot to mention about the suit. I did actually, to his credit, he's still a dick. Zelensky, to his credit, he did have a good comeback to that question about his suit. He pointed out, of course, he usually wears the green, sort of more military style wear, but he said that until this is all over, that's when he's going to wear a suit. But he said to the guy, you know, yeah, I might get a suit. I might get a suit. Maybe something like yours, he said, or maybe cheaper, or maybe better, something like that. Of course, before he was president of Ukraine, he was a professional comedian. So that's spilled over into this exchange, but he at least managed to get that comeback in, and I think that could have been seen as a slight, an early slight, that he had the audacity to try and defend himself against this bullying that's going on. So then Vance and Trump just went completely overkill on him.
We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on. The problem is, I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out.
I don't know what the empowering you to be a tough guy thing is all about. Obviously, this was instigated on Biden's watch. That's when the United States of America came swooping to Ukraine's rescue, as well as the UK, of course, and other countries swooping to the rescue, so to speak. So he's not empowered Zelensky at all. That was his predecessor. He's trying to take credit for Biden's work there, even though he was just saying that Biden was doing the wrong thing, and that's certainly what Vice President JD piece of shit Vance was saying there. Make your mind up. Was what Biden did a good thing or a bad thing? Where I've paused it there, actually. Zelensky's breaking the fourth wall. He's looking straight down the camera. Sorry, I didn't do that on purpose. But if you can see, it's like the get a load of this guy breaking the fourth wall, looking straight into the camera. Yeah, but you can't help but say I'm right with you there, because I can't believe it here, Vladimir. The Apprentice is back and Zelensky just got fired. There will be more TV showdowns from the White House. Yeah, I think you're right there, Graham. Thanks a lot for joining us on the stream as well. Great to see you. I do have to say, though, I'm not sure if my nervous system can take it. I might have to start doing the Brews at 10 from hospital with a drip feed of tea. Oh, how many? And it's only been a few weeks now. It feels like it's been years and years and years, but has it even been 2 full months since he was sworn in? Wow. And almost 4 more years to go. Oh, I think, yeah, I think I need a CAT scan or something. He's blown a few nodes in my noggin. That's for sure.
I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing.
All right, so that was just about that, people. Little compilation of the worst bits. I was going to say the best bits, but obviously it's the worst. And I dare say there's more to come. Ultimately, that's the impasse. Is this raw mineral deal, rare raw mineral proposition that Trump has set as his price, as it were, in the racketeering scam. And then, you know, this is a rough neighborhood. You don't want Putin to come along and anything could happen around here. It's a rough neighborhood, you know. Just want to look after you. It is going to be 4 long years. Yeah, it's barely been 4 weeks. It's not even in, like, just into the second month. Not even anywhere near 2 full months. So that's the big, massive elephant in the room, and I'll get on to the events of today. Part of Keith's main message, though, is that the United States have got to be the backstop, as it were, in this situation. But that's not happening. That's not happening. Zelensky either stormed out or was kicked out, depending on who you believe, without signing the minerals deal. That's Trump's price. So without that, there is no backstop. And Keith's just dreaming. He's just dreaming. That is totally off the table at the moment. he wants to try and get them together again in a room, which of course didn't work out the first time, as you just saw. You got a question there, my pal Foot. Where do I get the music from? Well, I'm joined here by Wink Wink. I'm joined by a live 4-piece jazz band. I'm not sure if you were in the stream when we were talking about it earlier. It's a 4-piece. You maybe can't hear the 4th member, Herbie the Range, because his trumpet work is supersonic. It's a very extreme, novel form of jazz that they're trying out. So if you can only hear bass, piano and drums, then that's why you can't hear the 4th member. It's a bit cramped in here, but honestly that's the situation. I'd ask them to say something, but they're concentrating on playing at the moment. So there you go, honest true story. All right, almost got sidetracked there. So that's the big diplomatic wall that I was talking about. First point. That's very important to remember, people. You know, if you're studying history or sociology or anything, somehow, for whatever reason, you're listening back to this live stream about public attitudes prior to World War III, and believe me, we're doing everything we can to stop it, but that's the situation at the moment from people in the, you know, in 20 years time when people are doing history. Should we survive the nuclear fallout, of course. Gallows humour there. Yeah, as well as a hospital could find my left eye. Will be coming to you from a fucking nuclear bunker somewhere. I better start digging. Well, I'd need to buy some land first. God, this isn't going well. Well, we'll see. Well, I don't know about conducting RC Pilot. I don't know if I'd have the coordination to keep up with you in the chat, as well as all the clips and stuff while I'm waving the rhythm stick along. But maybe I should have invited Trump to blow his own trumpet, Jacqueline. But I don't think he'd last too long in this studio, if you don't mind my saying so. And he was on his own turf there in the Oval Office. Just, yeah. Okay, so that leads us on to the events of today. I'll get that queued up. A lot happening today. Zelensky met the king. Like I said, he met him before Donald Trump, which will probably piss Trump off a bit. Which, you know, that's fair game by me. Pissing Trump off, that is. King's obviously trying to play both sides. And a bunch of other people have come over. The neo-libs and the far right are getting on famously now, as they always do. Because they spent so long bashing socialists that we've ended up in this precarious situation, people. So here's some of the latest. I'll just... Okay guys, thanks. Yeah, you can take a few minutes now. Okay. So while the band are off, we're going to go through this clip. Just couple of clips here. A crossroads in history, is it? One second, people. Bit of buffering here.
This is not a moment for more talk.
I'll just skip back to the beginning. Say something about that.
At a crossroads in history today.
It's a bit quiet. Apologies.
This is not a moment for more talk.
This is not a moment for more talk while he's at a talk and talking at the talk about not talking.
It's time to act, time to step up and lead, and to unite around a new plan for a just and enduring peace.
And how do you get peace, Keith? Yeah, of course, you raise the defence budget, don't you? And try and play both sides. Let's just have a bit in the background, people. Thanks, guys. Nice solo there, Herbie, by the way, on the trumpet earlier. He's been working on that one. So Keith's talking tough, but this is the guy who lost the fight to a punch bag. Let's remind ourselves. So like I said, a host of people with them. Emmanuel Macron, as I said, Justin Trudeau was there. Also Meloni, the fascist leader from Italy, who Keith warmly welcomed as well. Isn't it great to see the neo-libs and far-right getting along? I'm sure that they're going to resolve this situation without it descending into World War III. We can have trust in all of these people, right? So Zelensky said he just wants the Ukrainian position to be heard, adding even that he didn't want his country's position to be ambiguous, but he says we must all understand and know each other, and we must understand the red lines. Saying those red lines are not emotional, but they just happen to be there. Sorry there was buffering on that clip with Keith and the sound wasn't too great, but he did mention that we're at a crossroads in history, but the way things are set at the moment, all roads are leading to conflict. I've also considered the possibility that this could be a bit of a good cop, bad cop routine for international diplomacy. So, with what happened in the Oval Office on Friday, obviously that was the bad cop routine, which must have been a shock for Zelensky, let's be honest. But now he's over and warmly welcomed by the UK. Could this potentially be some sort of ploy? And I'm not getting the tin hat on, people, but consider this. If the EU and Starmer were in cahoots with Trump over this particular method, and now that he's, I mean, look at those embraces there and the pictures that he's been warmly welcomed in the UK, completely different, the complete mirror opposite of the White House. And if they turn around to him and just say, oh, you know, I mean, you're doing the best that you can, but we really need this US backstop. We don't have the sufficient military power to back you against Putin by ourselves. So if you just, you know, we're your buddies, if you just do the sensible thing and sign this minerals deal worth hundreds of billions with Trump, and then and then everything can be over. That could be what's going on. The only possible thing that's been suggested was, of course, put forward by Zelensky himself, and he said that he'd be willing to quit if Ukraine could become a member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organisation, which I don't think is likely. As I said on previous streams, I think that's only going to intimidate Putin more. I think he would see that as an excuse to intensify things against Ukraine, saying that he's being ganged up on. So it all comes down to this minerals deal. Do you think it could be a case of good cop, bad cop? Is that how they're gonna... I don't know. How they're gonna resolve this? I'll try and resolve it anyway. Right, just skip through a bit more of this. I've got some more clips coming up. Bear with people. Yeah, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent thinks an economic deal without a peace deal isn't possible. Mentioned earlier about Mandelson throwing his 2 cents in and trying to say that Ukraine have got to propose a ceasefire first, whatever that's supposed to mean. But I guess he's just speaking on behalf of Keith. So this is the industrial military complex, but from a UK perspective, it's been promised 5,000 air defence missiles by the UK. Also, a few billion more. You know, it's not that we've got issues with public services, freezing pensioners, that kind of thing in the UK. Yeah, just chuck another $3 billion it is, which is about £2.6 billion. And 5,000 air defence missiles, which will create 200 jobs apparently, if you know, if you like to create death showers for a living. Fair enough. Well, not fair enough. And there'll be jobs in Belfast. Oh yes, of course, Donald Tusk was there, another far-right leader. Wonder Gupta, great to see you in the chat. How you doing? Yeah, Donald Tusk, of course. Poland refused entry of ethnic minorities, etc. from Ukraine during the early phases when everyone started to move west or out of the country. He says Europe has woken up. For what it's worth, he also says all speak with one voice about helping Ukraine, the need for close transatlantic cooperation and strengthening the eastern border. We're hearing a lot of tough talk. You know, Keith was up there talking about strength and whatnot, but that's the elephant in the room. It's this minerals deal. Giorgia Meloni, who's a fascist, has given her reaction as well. She says, the one thing we absolutely cannot afford is a peace in Ukraine that does not last. She continues, we must be very careful when addressing what is being proposed, particularly in response to this key question, could this peace be violated? Because unfortunately we've seen this happen in the past. Well, not that I agree with her politics, she's actually right on that scenario. Again, 2019 and everything. We've seen this before. 6 years ago, they all got around the table. Back then, Angela Merkel was still Chancellor of Germany. But we've got a lot of different players now. We've got, obviously, Keith's in. The pieces are set, as it were, as Gandalf might put it. Dick Schoof, who's a Dutch. Sorry, don't mean to laugh. Dick Schoof says on X that Europe must take a greater role in ensuring safety for our continent, and adds that good transatlantic relations are also indispensable. Yeah, it's all, you know, tough guy talk, words, words, words. Keith said it's all about action now. So what are you talking about? Is he talking about creating this EU army that people speculating about? He's obviously encouraged other European countries to try and increase defence spending and whatnot. Josh, brother, great to see you. Haha. A few pictures there. Yeah, still no suits. Oh, God. They're still going on about the suit thing. Just a bit more there about what I just said. Yeah, they're all putting up defence spending, because that's how you get peace, you know. I want peace, let's order 5,000 missiles, says Keith. Or Trump, yeah, Trump wants peace, but he also wants hundreds of billions worth of mineral resources. You know, this is obviously awful in terms of the human suffering that happens directly from war. But looking at all sorts. This won't do well for us meeting our climate targets either. So Keith set out 4 points, apparently. The UK, France and others have agreed to work with Ukraine. Just turn the background music down a bit. Where was I? They've agreed to work with Ukraine on a plan to stop the fighting. This plan will be discussed with the United States, and together they will take the plan forward. I think that's a bit optimistic. Trump's always going to want to dictate things. He don't just think he's the king of the United States of America. He thinks he's king of the world. He wants to be, at least. During the summit, the 4 points are to keep military aid flowing to Ukraine. Obviously, there's been this 100-year deal that Starmer's done between the UK and Ukraine. Literally 100 years, billions a year for 100 years. And also for European leaders to aim to deter any future Russian invasion of Ukraine, and a coalition of the willing, so-called coalition of the willing. I've not heard that term, I don't think, since looking back on the early throes of the illegal occupation of Iraq. The coalition of the willing, and I remember, I'm sure that most of you who are watching will be familiar with Michael Moore, when he did his thing, Fahrenheit 9/11 thing about the Iraq War. There was a bit, he did a segment with all of the so-called countries in this coalition of the willing, and it was like, you know, Iceland, Palau, these, you know, places that don't really have even have armies. excuse me oh God. They don't even have armies, and I think in one example they'd agreed to send like whatever number of trained chimpanzees or monkeys it was, or something, to help to help in Iraq, to back up America. But this is a bit different though. Coalition of the willing. Just mentioned the 1.6 billion for missiles. Europe must do the heavy lifting in any peace deal, Starmer said. But the agreement would need US backing. Just sounds like he's implying the US are going to do the heavy lifting more than anything. The coalition of the willing. Robert Peston, asked the Prime Minister if he can rule out British troops being deployed to Ukraine, to which Starmer replied that the whole point of a possible deal would be to preserve peace. Yeah. Just need a quick drink. The thing our history tells us is that if there is conflict in Europe, it will wash up on our shores. Well, yeah, that's true, you know. It's one of the reasons we've got the European Union, for example, is to make sure that countries in Europe don't have it out with each other. So about any relations with the United States, he also says that he doesn't accept that the United States are an unreliable ally. There are two countries, no two countries as closely aligned as our two countries. But again, he's on the fence. He's literally probably been making Trump's piss boil today. Just seeing how Zelensky was greeted by Starmer, Macron, Meloni, the King, Justin Trudeau, Donald Tusk, et al. He's probably ranting about it on Truth Social as we speak. And good point there, Andy. None of this, you don't see this sort of attitude when it comes to helping out Gaza. Where arguably worse atrocities are taking place. But international law is definitely being breached. They just don't seem to have the same amount of enthusiasm to help out Palestinians as they do, and it is double standards. Yeah, good point there, Mo. Thanks for throwing up the Palestine flags in the chat as well, Andy. Okay, I'll leave that there for now. I don't want to go on too much. That's the bare bones of it. That's my 2 cents, more or less, on what's gone on today. Nothing's going to detract from the hard lines. Might take a little comedy break again now. Just going to make my mind up which one to go to. Yeah, I've got one from Matt Green here as well. I think we'll go with that one, people. Sure you're all familiar with fantastic Matt Green. And then I'm going to try and do a cheeky segue away from Matt Green into another story, but we'll get to that in a minute. Before we do, please make sure you've hit thumbs up on the stream as well. Give us a share around your social media. Please feel free to add a comment. Share your thoughts with us down below, whether you're listening live or back on a replay. I see. Double check that you've hit that thumbs up button, people. Thanks a lot. Matt Green.
Big news this week in the village as our brave leader travelled to the cave of the orange gibbering monster to pay tribute to him. Our diplomacy, sycophancy and treading carefully town crier Jonathan Godisgood has more. Yes, that's right. Ever since the big orange monster took over the cave, we've reported on how cruel and capricious he can be, making decisions one day, then changing them the next, with seemingly no rhyme or reason. Well, he is a monster. Exactly. But today, our village's leader pulled off a great coup. Did he use that word? Definitely not. That would not have gone down well. But through a mixture of flattery, obsequiousness and simply ignoring some of the noises that the great monster made, our leader does seem to have been successful in not being eaten. So what was
sorry about this, people. The clip seems to have paused itself of its own accord for some reason. I'm just going to skip back.
big news? Definitely not. That would not have gone down well. But through a mixture of flattery, obsequiousness and simply ignoring some of the noises that the great monster made, our leader does seem to have been successful.
Okay, don't worry. I do have a backup. Clip. Yeah, sorry, something's just gone wrong with the upload into the broadcast software. It was working earlier. I checked it earlier. But we're going to go over instead. Yes, breaking story from Broken News with Larry and Paul instead. Sorry we couldn't bring you Matt Green, but going across to Broken News.
Welcome to Broken News. It's award season and competition is taking off as airline companies around the world compete for the coveted World's Worst Airline Award. Our reporter, Dirk McMichaels Burrowford, joins us live now from the Hollywood of air travel, Luton. Dirk, fierce competition this year. Who's in the running? Or should I say, who's in the running way? Who's on the running way? Who's in the running? Who's on the running?
Yeah.
Who's in the running way? Who's on the runway? Who's on the running way? The run.
Very good, Perry. Welcome to the busiest airport in the whole of Bedfordshire. It's the home of airlines such as EasyJet, Ryanair and Wizz Air, which sounds like a euphemism for pissing off a cliff, but Broken News has discovered is a real airline. Although I should say barely a real airline, because Wizz Air, along with many other airlines, is up for a coveted golden sick bag, the Oscars of terrible air travel. You know, this is a competition dominated by Ryanair in recent years, but this year's award is proving to be tighter than a tiny nun's chuff. Emirates and Singapore Airlines have once again been disqualified because of their unusual policy of not treating people like they're in a concentration camp. But what will tip the balance in favour of any particular airline? Yes, Ryanair took seconds off their flight turnaround time with a new policy of trapping passengers on freezing staircases for ages. But then all of Wizz Air's flights have been later than a builder who said he'd be there at 9 a.m. and you'd taken the morning off work and you'd tried to call him but he didn't answer or respond to your WhatsApps. He finally shows up around 2 p.m. saying his phone died despite it obviously ringing when you called it, and then 20 minutes later he goes off to slap a sloppy egg sandwich from the greasy spoon down his lazy gob and he still expects to be paid for the full day? Are you having a laugh, mate? Are you actually taking the piss? Aer Lingus have been making a late bid for the title by having an aggressive member of staff stomp around the boarding gate charging you €50 if your carry-on bag happens to be an atom too big for that weird metal cage thing that looks like something from a Soho sex dungeon. EasyJet are in the running for charging more per gram for your Pringles than your mate Mad Bance Rupert does for cocaine. But there could be strong competition from Jet2, which has even further ramped up its obsessive use of the song Hold My Hand by curly-haired pop ginge Jess Glynn. The airline, based in the fictional northern town of Leeds, says it deserves...
Well, it appears to be infectious. Sorry about that, people. Bit of a problem with the broadcast software. It was just getting towards the end of the clip. Let's skip forward a bit. One sec. No, it's not having it. Yeah, apologies there, but great stuff from Broken News. Let's look into that. What's going on there? I'll give it one more go. about there-ish.
Which has even further ramped up its obsessive use of the song Hold My Hand by curly-haired pop.
Won't go past there. Don't know what that's all about. We'll look into that. Sorry lads, gonna have to bring the background band in a bit quicker than usual. If you're ready, Herbie. Sorry about that, Gremlins in the works, people. Shout out once again though to Larry and Paul. Oh, don't tell me it's doing all the background music now. Sorry, something's going on here. Stand by. Morbius, thanks for the gifted membership. 90 members there now. Folks, I just have to ask you very quickly, if you can let me know in the chat listening live, if you can hear the background music at the moment. I'm getting a level on my EQ, but I can't hear it in my headphones. The music's on. Okay, that's bizarre. I can't hear it. But if you can, then that's all that matters. Thanks again, Morbius, for that gifted membership. Yeah, 90, that puts us up to 90. Just 10 away from 100. Thanks again for that, Morbius. Solidarity. Okay, you can hear the music, so that's all good. I was going to go on from the Matt Green comments to this next story with a bit of a tongue-in-cheek segue. Hope Matt Green wouldn't mind me saying. If he's listening or watching, even. Not sure if I've ever seen him in the same room as Annalise Dodds. But there you go. Yeah, she's quit. She's stepped down because of Keith's rise in defence spending at the cost of foreign aid, in case we need reminding. So there she is. She quit earlier this week. I have been a critic of Dodds in the past, but I guess she does at least have some moral standards on this issue. So she said in a letter that cuts to international aid announced earlier this week to increase defence spending would remove food and healthcare from desperate people, which is a fair point. Just turn the background music down a bit, even though I can't hear it. But she said that she'd delayed her resignation until after his meeting with Trump, saying it was imperative that she had a united cabinet behind you before you set off for Washington. I'm not exactly sure that if she'd have quit earlier that he'd arrive at the White House and Trump would say, no, sorry, no, not without Annalise Dodds behind you. Could be a bit of hubris there. But she said that while Starmer had been clear that he was not ideologically opposed to international development, the cuts were being portrayed as following in Trump's slipstream of cuts to US aid. Ahead of his trip to meet Trump, Starmer announced aid funding will be reduced from 0.5 to 0.3. Yeah, we talked about this earlier on stream. Skip past that. So she's been replaced by Baroness Chapman of Darlington, formerly a Labour MP. It's been replaced. Obviously, she has that ministerial position. In a resignation letter, she said she welcomed an increase to defence spending at a time when post-war global order had come crashing down. But she expressed disappointments that instead of funding our fiscal rules, and approach the taxation that the Prime Minister had adopted to allow the ODA to absorb the entire budget. There's a picture of Keith and Trump there. God, he's gone beyond orange now, hasn't he, really? Something else I noticed, and I just want to say this because I'm not sure if it's one of those things you might not be able to unsee, you know, once you're aware of it. I didn't mention it during the clip I played earlier from when Trump and Vance were having a go at Zelensky, but if you look very carefully at that clip when JD Vance is speaking, at one point it zooms into Vance and there's a sort of a display trophy plate of some sort, not exactly sure what it is, behind Vance's head, and just the angle of it happens to reflect from the back of Donald Trump's head, and where his hair is, you sort of see this, how can I describe it, this sort of missing section, like in the shape of a valley or a canyon or whatever, or a ravine, but just a trench sort of cut out of Trump's hair, and you can see it reflected in this plate from the back. I mean, I'm not sure if it's worth going back to the clip just to verify that. I might do that a little bit later, but did you notice that? Did you see that? Yeah, he's going mahogany, Doc. He's going mahogany. Good point, Andy. Yeah, Annalise Dodds being too left-wing for Keith's Labour really says something else. I mentioned I've been a critic of hers in the past. Could be something else going on, but that's been given as the official reason. You know, you wouldn't put it past a lot of MPs. It wouldn't go without precedent that the official reason for stepping down isn't what's actually happening. Other critics about the decision include Labour MP Sarah Champion, who chairs the International Development Committee, who said that cutting the aid budget to fund defence spending is a false economy and would, quote, only make the world less safe. Diane Abbott's been a critic as well. But Ed Davey says he's done the right thing. Leader of the Lib Dems, Ed Davey. Wow. So yeah, looks like there will be a by-election now in Oxford East, where she's been standing, or she was standing since 2017 under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership of the Labour Party. She served as a Shadow Treasury Minister and was promoted to Shadow Chancellor when Sir Keith of Sausage took over. That's about it from that story. Let me know what you think about it in the chat or in the comments. If you're watching back on a replay, that will be the last we will see of Annalise Dodds for a while, it appears. Keep you posted on the by-election. Could be another one of those where hopefully, well, God, out the frying pan into the fire. I'll have to look into the majority, etc., which I haven't done yet. Who could look likely to overtake? Could the Tories take it? Could Reform take it? I'd rather a socialist independent or grassroots party took it, or maybe even the Greens, personally speaking. But that is a sad state of affairs, that even she's too left for Keith. Goes to show how far he's lurching to the right at the moment. This is really weird, not being able to hear the background music. Checking everything's okay. But yeah, like I said, as long as you can hear it, that's good enough for me. On to a different topic in just a moment. hope the background music level's okay. I'll just turn it down another notch or two there. I'll just quickly go through this while we're on domestic UK affairs. Unfortunately, a bit more bad news. Rail fares are set to rise again, people. What do you think about this, brothers and sisters? Ladies and gentlemen, they're thems. And comrades alike. They're up again. And are set to pile further misery on hard-pressed households, campaign group has said. From Sunday, that's today, all regulated rail fares in England have risen by 4.6%, and the price of most rail cards by £5. The government says fares need to rise so it can invest in the rail system, but Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander acknowledged passengers were frustrated by delays and cancellations. Well, how about taking the money away from shareholders, who still make hand over fist, however crap the services are? Here where my left eye is coming from you tonight, we have Northern Rail, which have a reputation as being pretty much the worst, or the worst in the country, outside of London, that's for sure. The rail fare rise for regulated tickets includes more season tickets covering commuter routes in England, which can cost thousands of pounds. They're already a rip-off as they are. Look at other countries in Europe. It's much cheaper. I mentioned before on the stream, you know, to get to London and back by train here will cost about £100. You can get from Rome to Paris for €30. Which is about, you know, just over 25 quid. Shocking. But yeah, let's not mind the shareholders. Heaven forfend. Michael Solomon Williams, who's the head of the campaign group, said high ticket prices were the #1 barrier to getting more people to travel by rail. Yeah, this is only going to deter people further. It gives no financial incentive for people to get out of the cars and onto trains to commute if they don't have to get a car to work. That's going to help contribute towards our CO2 targets as well if people do that, because building second and third runways and starting wars sure as shit isn't going to help with our CO2 output. However much Starmer wants to try and cook the books, you know, with net zero, try and make it look as though emissions are coming from other countries, even though we're the ones who sold them whatever fossil fuel it is. Mithril, great to see you in the chat. Thanks for celebrating 8 months of membership. Yeah, it's been great to have you with you for 8 months. Great to see you as always. So yeah, this isn't going to do it. This isn't going to get people onto trains, out the cars. People are being hit hard. Michael Solomon Williams also said, he said people want to take the train and they're being priced off the railways. At the same time, fuel duty is being frozen. Government has the choice, it can choose to intervene. But this is just the latest of the so-called tough choices that they'll make, which basically just means more austerity for the working class, and the gap, the wealth gap, ever increasing, of course. Cheaper to fly from London to Amsterdam than to take the Eurostar. Good point, Morbius. That's another problem. That's another problem. If rail isn't cheaper than getting a plane, then everything's on its head. You know, flying really should be seen as a luxury. If for people to get across the globe quicker and more convenient comes at a great cost to the environment, then it should be treated as a luxury. At least. Adrian Rose, who's a rail commuter, says hiking rail fares when they're already crazy expensive is not justifiable. For him, his wife and 2 daughters to drive from Kent to see relatives in Newcastle is no more than £100 in fuel for the family, whereas to go by train can cost more than £400 if booking close to the departure date. He would happily take the train, but for over 4 times the cost, he could have a week's holiday for that. Yeah, £400. They're trying to use the excuse that what they inherited wasn't fit for purpose. But no, it's just more private rail greed. Nationalise it. Nationalise it now. But speaking of nationalisation, it says, however, 3 rail operators are set to be renationalised this year: Southern Western Railway, Coast to Coast and Greater Anglia. This is not expected to bring ticket prices down. No, but it should, and yeah, I think the unions have got to get behind this as well. I'm sure Mick Lynch from the RMT will have a few things to say on that. Where are the incentives? Make it make sense. Or do you want to get the train? It's like, well, is it cheaper than driving or getting a plane? It's like, no. First place people are going to look is in the pockets. Yeah, you're right, Doc. It's not the absolute solution to the climate crisis or the wealth divide, but it certainly wouldn't hurt. We do need to do a lot more, of course. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. But this is a step, however big or significant, in the wrong direction. Abolishing capitalism would help. Good point, Andy. Not just rail services that need nationalising. Utilities. So many other services, bus services, water, electric. All the things that Thatcher sold off, plus more. Heck of a lot more. Going to go on to some more international stories in just a moment. Do bear with. I've still got another couple of pieces on this diplomatic stuff. Just didn't want to harp on too long continuously about it. I'll come back onto 1 or 2 things in a moment. I want to show you a couple of protests that have been taking place across the world. Just give me 2 minutes though, people. I will be right back. Just need to take a very brief break. Please do talk amongst yourselves. Yeah, I'll be back in just a moment, people. Thanks for your patience. Okay, thanks for your patience. Just had to top up my drink and take a quick comfort break, as it were. You know, the fan heater on earlier, it was drying the air out, that's why I was coughing so much. Apologies for that earlier. Yes, time to charge your glasses with a brew. Right, yeah, a couple of protests. I want to start with this one. We're going to go over and obviously let's keep you up to speed with the latest in Gaza. You'll remember I mentioned on, I think it was Wednesday's PMQ's live stream that there was a documentary, I think it might have been before that, a documentary that was pulled from BBC iPlayer, which was incredibly shocking, and there is a link to the full documentary on the stream if you do want to check it out and see it in full. But it was obviously from Gazan's perspective, narrated by a 13-year-old Gazan. There are claims that his father has strong links to Hamas, and of course Israel have pretty much directed the BBC to take down this documentary. However, there have been protests against this, and a group went to the BBC buildings in Scotland with a projector in a similar fashion to the Lead for Donkeys type of protests and other groups that use these projections onto public buildings. So they decided if the BBC were going to pull the documentary, then they'd go to the BBC and play it back for them. So you're going to see a segment here from the protest. I should just point out this documentary, if you're not familiar with it, it's called How to Survive a War. It's very heavy hitting, it's a very strong documentary, it is very real on the ground footage, the type of footage that Israel are trying to ban by stopping journalists from going there, targeting journalists as well, deliberately and directly. So the clip that they use in the protest that's projected onto the building is quite a strong part of the clip. I'm just pre-warning you. It's not particularly graphic, but it's certainly emotional, just to let you know. So this is the protest there. Free Palestine.
The Israeli army said that they have no record of the Apache attack.
آخر الشهر استشهد إن هو زميل من هو مدير. فجينا من الجزء عرفنا من الوصف تبعته. بالنسبة لي يعني الاستهلاك المسعفين في الحرب هذه كان بشكل كبير.
Don't pay the license fee! Boycott the BBC! Don't pay the license fee!
5 days after the Apache attack, at 1 a.m., an airstrike has hit tents right outside the hospital. killed, including a 19-year-old.
Great to see people really stepping up to the BBC there and highlighting just how shameful and I guess, well, the only way I can put it is outright censorship that's being displayed by taking the documentary down. Please do check out the link on that previous live stream that I mentioned and watch the full thing. Let's not let the truth get buried here, people. Thanks a lot for throwing up the Palestine flags in the chat as well. And Mobius used to cringe when people criticised the BBC because you thought it was, you associated it with right-wing thinking, but you were wrong. Yeah, the right-wing are always critics of the BBC because they're never as far right as they want them to be. There's certainly right-leaning. Director of the BBC is a Tory, donates to the Tory party himself. Sure, a lot of the higher paid staff vote Tory as well to protect the salaries and so on and so forth. There's a great deal of bias there towards Israel where this illegal occupation is concerned, and of course notoriously they always step in and try and give Israel's side of things during interviews with pro-Palestinians, and anyone who's critical of Israel will always get interrupted by the presenter. Mithril, they took you to court once over not paying your licence, but their evidence was at an unknown time in a 6-month period you watched the BBC. Nice to know they have such a high evidence threshold. Yeah, that's right, if you own a TV and don't watch the BBC, then they legally can't charge you for it. A lot of people, you know, they have smart TVs these days, they link them up to other devices, laptops, PCs, that kind of thing. And yeah, it's totally different. I don't know if it's still the case. I heard a thing once that if you have a black and white TV, it's cheaper or it's free or something. I can't remember what it was, but I don't really think that many people have those these days. As far as the news goes, they do get a lot of the stories out there fast. I know it's might seem hypocritical or like there's double standards going on with me referring to BBC articles a lot. I do that obviously with these facts in mind, that they have a certain amount of bias, but they are one of the big outlets that get a lot of the stories out there first. There was another protest about the occupation in Gaza as well. I think I've got this link to a tweet. Yeah. This broke earlier today, this story about clashes between Israeli police and protesters who tried to break through security barriers at the entrance to Netanyahu's residence, which is in occupied Jerusalem, and they demanded the completion of the prisoner exchange deal. Now, the first phase has come to a conclusion. What's happening at the moment is Israel have essentially cut off aid from entering Gaza, and this looks set to scupper phase 2, which was obviously due to involve further exchanges of prisoners, hostages, whichever you'd like to call them. And Israelis themselves, who have been protesting against Netanyahu for some time, really think that this is going to scupper the chances of that happening. So this comes from outside Netanyahu's house, like I said, in occupied Jerusalem. Even a lot of Israelis now are wising up to what Netanyahu's doing. They're wising up to the fact that he doesn't care about the hostages. They're wising up to the fact that he doesn't want peace. He wants to delay phase 2 from starting as much as possible, because as we've said before, this would create a huge political crisis for him. So many members of his cabinet who are the extreme right-wing Zionists, arguably even further to the right than he is, are threatening to step down should phase 2 go into effect, because they feel as though it's giving too much away to Gaza to release whatever number of prisoners it will be, or to let however much aid there is. So he's stalling for time, really, is what he's doing. And at the same time, people in Gaza still suffer daily at the hands of Israel, who've broken the ceasefire agreement so many times. But let's take a look at this, people. Just turn the background music down. Oh, it's gone off anyway. The loop only lasts so long. Brutal clashes, of course, between the Israeli police and protesters, which we've seen before. We've also seen anti-Zionist Israeli residents being attacked by the police and the IDF as well. Orthodox Jews who live in Israel and have called out Netanyahu for his illegal occupation. This is how they treat their own citizens, just for saying it like it is. Good point, Mobius. Yeah, there never really was a ceasefire. It was a total sham. Nowhere near the amount of aid was let in that was agreed. That's just one example. Obviously, they continued to bomb and shell areas. They've refused to remove the IDF from the Philadelphia corridor, as it's known, which is the sort of gap between the coast of Gaza and Egypt. So many examples of Israel breaking the ceasefire agreement. When, of course, Gaza, Hamas have held up their side of the bargain. That's without getting into the way that respective prisoners, hostages have been treated. You see the Palestinian figures coming off these buses, some of whom have been held illegally in Israel prisons for years, decades in some case, looking gaunt, the shells of the former self. And where Hamas are concerned, when they release hostages, they always have smiles on their faces, they look healthy, they were treated respectfully, they were allowed to practice their religion, they were fed the same food as the captors ate, so on and so forth. Not all of the hostages, unfortunately, have survived through to this exchange, but in the vast majority of cases that's because they died at the hands of their own country, with Israel shelling so indiscriminately that they've killed many of their own hostages. Right, that's been on loop for a while. I'll get rid of that now. Yes, just beyond words how tragic this is. Really hope that they can get through into phase 2. I'll keep you posted, of course, with the latest developments, as always, here on My Left Eye. But we always stand in solidarity with Palestine and call for a free Gaza and a free West Bank as well. They've been subject to further Israeli shelling. They've also broken the ceasefire agreements in Lebanon. The mainstream media seem to be completely oblivious to the fact that Israel are currently continuing to shell Syria. They've got plans for the south of Syria, and in fact they've ordered the Syrian military not to go any further south from Damascus, as mentioned on early streams in the week as well. Point about free speech and the right to protest in the chat as well. I do agree with you there, Mithril. I find myself saying that in increasing frequency about the so-called rights of free speech coming from the right wing. That just means that they want to be free to use hate speech, racist speech, transphobia, homophobia, which of course is an outdated thing in society. They want to call that woke, having appropriated the word woke, which is now seen to detract so far from its original meaning. It's beyond belief. But no, they just want the right to spread that hate and not be held to account, and they call it being cancelled. You know, should someone online say something that falls within the realms of that hate speech that I mentioned. But you're right there, Andy, they don't bat an eyelid when it comes to left-wing socialists being suppressed, being censored, that kind of thing. Double standards, wherever you look. Moving on now, we'll just go back to a couple of final points on the diplomatic events over the weekend. This one very quickly. There was backlash against JD Vance and Donald Trump. So JD Vance was set to go on a little holiday in Vermont, which is sort of a skiing wintry area, as it were, but word got out where he was going to, and pro-Ukrainian protesters showed up to greet his family. Let's just see what's happening there, people. I'm just going to make that a bit smaller. I hope this vid plays smoother than the other one. We'll give it a go. Just let me know the audio's coming through. Okay, so there you can see quite a few people showed up. Before Sunday, Biden, the message was to get behind Ukraine. A lot of US citizens have done that. You can see the signs there, deport billionaires. Clearly not impressed, are they? Sorry, the background music was on there at the same time. Hope the audio came through okay. So ultimately, he had to do a runner. He had to go off and find an undisclosed location that he could go to instead of where he was going to be holidaying. Instead, people held up pro-Ukraine signs on the route in Waitsville that Vance and his family were expecting to take on the way to skiing. US media reported the family moved to an undisclosed location from their planned ski resort because of the demonstrations. Hundreds of people also gathered in New York, Los Angeles, Boston on Saturday to express support for Ukraine. So Julie Daly, who's from Indivisible Mad River Valley, the group which organised the protest, said, "I think Friday's performance at the White House has probably galvanised even more to come out today." That's probably true, looking at things, to be honest. You can see more of the signs there. Separately, demonstrators also gathered outside Tesla stores in the United States on Saturday to protest against Elon Musk's push to slash government spending. Musk has been taken to task by Trump to oversee Doge. After the meeting at the White House, Zelensky flew to the UK, blah blah blah. Yeah, we just mentioned all that, of course. I don't have to watch that exchange again. So it's not gone down well. It's not gone down well. Yeah, it is good to see, though. I guess. Just yet again, I'm no fan of Zelensky's, but it's always good to see people throwing shade at Vance and Trump and Musk. Is there something playing there in the background? What is that? Okay, we're good to go. Just quickly wanted to mention that one. Got another kind of, not protest as it were, but domestically, criticism about Trump's proposed second state visit. Of course, you remember that one that he had when Queen Elizabeth II was still alive. Do you remember he didn't know which way to walk? Like, he just got all the, not that I'm a fan of all this pomp and ceremony, but for Trump to try and enter into that world where he kept missing his cues, walking the wrong way, turning his back on the Queen, walking around it, this, all this kind of stuff. He was all over the place. He was in pieces. I dare say that the same thing would happen again. But the SNP here in the UK certainly don't think that should go ahead. And they've called for Starmer to axe the state visit, but Keith says he won't be directed on rhetoric. Let's see what's happening, people.
drives me is what I'm saying and doing more likely to bring about peace, a lasting.
Oh, that clip's over now, Paddy. Never mind. That was on Kossenberg earlier today. It's only a short clip. He's always very dismissive of the SNP anyway. And that's just the way he is. So John Swinney, who's, of course, recent leader of the SNP, said he doesn't see how a state visit for the US president offered by the King on Thursday could go ahead unless he was absolutely full square with us in protecting Ukraine, which clearly isn't at the moment. However, Starmer, who hosted a summit of European leaders, including Zelensky earlier, accused the SNP of using rhetoric and said that he would not be distracted. I'm sure there's going to be a huge national petition over this as well. But it's followed a number of SNP MPs criticising the Prime Minister's relationship with Trump on social media, including party's Westminster leader Stephen Flynn, who said Starmer better get back up off his knees and revoke that offer of a state visit. Prior to Zelensky's warm welcome at Downing Street on Saturday, the SNP's Foreign Affairs spokesperson Stephen Gethins accused the Prime Minister of being silent on the matter, which he said was disappointing. After the White House exchange, Starmer called both Trump and Zelensky and later reiterated the UK's support for Ukraine, saying we stand with Ukraine as long as it may take. Starmer says, I'm interested in what are the practical steps, what are the bridge building that I can do. That's not really a sentence, Keith, but anyway. What are the relationships that I can mend and take forward to take us to a lasting peace? But I'll remind Keith that the only thing that happens to bridges is they get walked over. Yeah. Goes on to say, I'm not going to be diverted by the SNP or others trying to ramp up the rhetoric without really appreciating what is the single most important thing at stake here. We're talking about peace in Europe. Peace with increased defence spending and peace with missile production. That's Keith's modus operandi. Of course, Trump owns 2 golf courses in Scotland, which is where the initial meeting was offered. It says apparently on the state visit. They're not going to like that in Scotland. Do we have any Scots in the chat? Let us know what you think about that. Swinney also said that being aligned is an absolute fundamental requirement of any offer of a state visit, that he's absolutely full square with us in protecting us. Yeah, I just mentioned that. If we don't do that, then I think we are undermining the future of Western democracy. It's definitely openly trying to play both sides and sit on the fence like we know already. And then it just goes on to say a bit more about those 4 points that Starmer brought up earlier. I've just remembered a random joke I saw earlier on social media. It was a quote from Billy Connolly. While we're on the subject of Scotland, he said, Bonnie Prince Charlie's probably the only monarch to have been named after 3 dogs. Bonnie, Prince and Charlie. Andy Carter, your comment there just reminded me about that. But yeah, Bonnie King Jezza would immediately abolish his own position. Good point. He would as well. Yes, Corbyn wants peace, not power. That clip's been going around as well of him during an interview, you know, saying he's got no interest in war, he doesn't want missiles, he wants peace. And whilst those on the right will be happy to speculate about how wars should be fought, you know, obviously proper real socialists say that they shouldn't be fought at all. Have we learned nothing from the past? It only ever leads to one thing. And we say, never forget. We say, lest we forget. We say, never again. All these kind of phrases. Do they actually mean anything in practical terms? I don't know. I have my reservations about that. Make sure you've hit thumbs up on the stream, people. Got another comedy clip coming up. Right, I'm just gonna...
The Israeli army said that
I just want to make sure that the clip plays smoothly. A couple of interruptions earlier. We can't have that. I'm just doing a small amount of tinkering. Try and make sure this comes through without interruption. I will play the full Matt Green clip during the week on Brews at 10 at some point, just to make up for that one. Right, let's give this a bash. Let's give this a bash, even. Thanks a lot, Andy, for the gifted membership. Another gifted membership from Andy. Thank you so much. I think that takes us on to 91. Getting ever closer to the 100 mark. Thanks again for that, brother. This one's from the Exploding Heads, and it's Colin from Portsmouth again. You're probably familiar with already, but another fantastic video from Exploding Heads. Thanks again, Andy, for the gifted membership.
Colin from Portsmouth's on the line. Hello, Colin.
Why are the tofu-eating wokerati all up in arms about Keir Starmer wanting us to be all up in arms?
Right, sorry, Colin, I don't follow that.
Keir Starmer has increased defence spending and suddenly everyone's all against it.
Well, I think that's partly because he's cut foreign aid to fund spending on defence.
Well, that's good.
If you see what I mean,
That's That's good. Those
Right.
poorer countries who depend on our aid, they'll be absolutely livid. And you know what foreign countries are like if they get a bee in their bonnet about something?
Oh, yes.
They'll be coming after us. This way we'll be protected when they do.
I think maybe people are a bit worried that he's going against his election pledges on foreign aid. Is that not a bit dodgy there, Colin?
No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. Anyone who expects politicians to be honest about what they're going to do need to have a word with themselves. How
Fair
would
enough.
anyone ever get elected if they were honest?
All right, but what about the environmental policies being trashed? He's
Look,
trashing
mate,
policies
look,
left, right, and
no.
centre.
No, look, I like a rabbit lolloping over the countryside as much as anyone else. But choking on smoke is part of our God-given British identity. And we'd lose out on the tourism dollar if people can't come over here and laugh at our short-sighted Cockney ways.
A fifth runway at Heathrow, Colin. There'll be 50,000 more flights operating out of our airport.
Oh, use your noggin, mate. When the ice caps melt, there's going to be a hell of a crush to get a flight out of here, isn't there?
Yeah, well,
so
that's
much
true.
easier if there's more flights. Anyway, mate, thanks for having me on. Love to the family.
Love to the family, Colin. Love to the family.
I don't think they should be renationalising the railways, though. No way do I want to sit next to someone who previously couldn't afford a rail ticket. People who, through no fault of their own, are poor, have no one to blame but themselves.
Exploding heads. There's always something with Colin from Portsmouth. Yeah, really good, really good. Check out Exploding Heads on YouTube and social media as well. Yeah, Mithro, you make a good point in the chat there. You know, sometimes, a quote you might appreciate: war is upon you whether you would like it or not, or war is upon us whether we would like it or not, from Lord of the Rings. But when it does happen, obviously you have to deal with it, but whether you're involved in sparking the initial stages of that depends on where you are, of course. Not everybody does their part, but war does unfortunately affect those who have no control over it. Are people in Portsmouth really like Colin, my pal Footfoot? Won't surprise me. You know, I don't know if you ever dare to read any of the comments in right-wing publications, the Tory Graph, the Daily Fail, whatever it might be. Unfortunately, as a political, social commentator and YouTuber, I do find myself having to research those areas to find out what people are saying, much to my disappointment. Yeah, you find that parody is often not too far away from reality. Looks like it's happening on quite a lot at the south coast, Southampton as well. You're saying there, Mithro, about Bournemouth. Let us know if you're from down that area. What it's like. That's a fair way from where the stream's coming from you tonight here in the northwest. I was actually talking to somebody who's going down to Portsmouth earlier today, actually, by coincidence. Okay, people, coming towards the end of the stream, just want to give another customary thank you to all the members. If you'll excuse me popping it out for a moment. Thanks for all of your gifted memberships on tonight's stream as well. I'm going to add those names to the list as always. After I bring things to a close tonight. very well getting towards that monumental landmark of 100. We'll see if there's anywhere we can raid into after we finish. Yeah, we've got Kevin Logan and No Justice, both fantastic YouTubers as well. So we've got a choice of, can't remember which of the two raided into last time. Can't remember if it was Kev or Helen at No Justice. Let me know in the chats if you've got any preference. I always find that's a difficult choice. Yes, Andy, I will ask Keith if the fondue's ready. We will be going over, of course, for another visit to Keith's Fondue Lounge before we leave. Let's just bring you up in the chat there first. Okay, Kev needs a bit of a boost, does he? So no problem. Let's do that. Let's show some solidarity. I know a lot of you are already familiar with No Justice and Kev. They do often co-host together. They do a simultaneous stream, as it were. So let's get that queued up for after we've been into the lounge. There we go. I'll be joining you over there with Kev and everyone. Very funny fella. Holds no quarter. Certainly holds no quarter against the right. Both great socialist channels as well, of course. So please do subscribe. Give a thumbs up and everything when you get over to Kev. Also subscribe to Helena, which is at No Justice. MTG is the YouTube handle. Strongly recommend subscribe to that channel as well if you're not familiar with No Justice. Right, time for a final helping, a second sitting of fondue in the lounge with Keith, just as we say our goodbyes. Please do stick around though. Like I said, we'll be redirecting very shortly. Keith, are you there? Are you at home? We're here. Told your favourite socialists again, Keith. I'm sure I can hear a document shredder somewhere in the background, but that's another story. Okay, people, thanks a lot for joining me on the stream. You've been wonderful as always. Just one final reminder to please make sure you've hit that thumbs up button on the stream. Please do add a comment down below, whether you're listening live or back on a replay. Super thanks are open if you're watching back on a replay and want to support the channel in that fashion. As well, I'll be back with you during the week, of course, with live streams at 10 o'clock starting tomorrow. That's the Brews at 10. Please do join me there if you've not come along to one of those before. Bring a hot tasty beverage and plenty of tea-based puns, and we'll see what develops between now and then. So it'll be great to see you there. Thanks for choosing to see the week out with me here on My Left Eye. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll be over joining you with Kev very shortly. Take care, everybody. If I don't see you over with Kevin Logan, then My Left Eye will be seeing you very soon. A very good night to everybody. Take care. Solidarity and free Palestine. Power to the people. Good night.